Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into a profound theological text that, quite frankly, is going to completely flip your understanding of humility right on its head. You know, when we hear the word humility today, we usually think of self-deprecation or maybe downplaying our achievements. But the source material we're about to unpack completely shatters that modern definition. We're looking at a classic 19th century text called Humility, the Beauty of Holiness by Reverend Andrew Murray. Our goal here is to impartially explore his radical argument about the true nature of humility and human design. And whether you're coming at this from a theological perspective, a historical one, or you're just a fan of the history of ideas, I promise you, Murray's framework is incredibly structured and will definitely get you thinking.
Here is our roadmap for the explainer. First, rethinking true humility. Second, the empty vessel. Third, the poison of pride. And finally, the secret of redemption. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Rethinking True Humility, Moving Beyond Self-Condemnation. Murray kicks things off by pointing out a massive flaw in how humility has historically been taught. We so often equate it with this heavy focus on our fallen state and just constant self-condemnation. What's really wild about this is that Murray notes some people took this to such an absurd extreme, they actually thought they needed to keep sinning just to stay humble. I mean, talk about a convenient backup plan for bad behavior, right? But Murray argues the exact opposite. True humility actually exists entirely apart from sin. It's simply our natural, beautiful relation as creatures to a creator. It is absolutely not a mark of shame, it is our highest glory.
To really lock this concept in, Murray gives us a super clear definition. He defines humility as the sense of entire nothingness, which comes when we see how truly God is all. So, according to the text, the core concept here isn't about beating yourself up or lugging around immense guilt. It is simply the realization of your own nothingness, so that you can allow the Creator to be absolutely everything. It's a positional shift. It's just recognizing exactly where a created being stands in relation to the Creator.
Which brings us to Section 2, the empty vessel, the original design of the creature. So if humility isn't just a reaction to doing something wrong, what was its original purpose when humanity was first created? Well, the text uses a brilliant metaphor. God created us with one primary object in mind, to be an empty vessel. The highest virtue of a created being isn't to possess power or goodness all on our own, as if for these little self-sustaining batteries. Not at all. Our design is literally to be an empty vessel that continually receives God's life, power, and goodness. We basically just make way for the Creator to dwell and manifest power through us. And Murray puts this so perfectly. He writes, "The relation of the creature to God could only be one of unceasing, absolute, universal dependence." Just let those three words sink in for a second. Unceasing, absolute, universal. The source material insists that this kind of dependence isn't a burden. Actually, scratch that. It's the exact opposite. It's meant to be the source of our absolute highest happiness and nobility. By constantly relying on the Creator, the creature is operating exactly as it was designed to. So what went wrong? Let's look at Section 3, the poison of pride, the cosmic disruption of our design. If our natural state is supposed to be this beautiful, dependent humility, how did we get here? Well, Murray points to one specific culprit and traces this fascinating cosmic timeline. It actually starts before time even existed, when fallen angels began to look at themselves with self-complacency, basically desiring independence from God. That's the origin of pride. Then fast forward to the Garden of Eden. The serpent breathes that exact same poison into our first parents, tempting them with the desire to be as God. When Eve yields her will, that original, blessed humility is shattered, and it corrupts the entire human race with what Murray literally calls a satanic poison. And look, the author doesn't just leave this as some lofty, abstract theological theory. He grounds it right in our everyday reality. He argues that this loss of humility is the literal root of all evil. Just think about the fallout of pride. We're talking wars and bloodshed between nations, extreme selfishness, intense ambitions, bitter jealousies, all the way down to broken hearts, embittered lives, and just your standard daily unhappiness. Murray makes a really compelling case that every single one of these human sufferings can be traced straight back to this cursed pride, this relentless desire to elevate ourselves, rather than just remaining an empty, dependent vessel. This brings us to the ultimate fix, Section 4, the secret of redemption. Christ as incarnate humility. So we have this overwhelming, deeply rooted poison in humanity, right? It requires a supernatural solution. Murray uses a really sticky, repeated metaphor here. He says,
No tree can grow except on the root from which it sprang. It's such a great visual. Because humanity grew from a diseased root of pride that got planted in Eden, human nature just can't fix itself. A tree can only produce what's already in its root. So for sure, we need an entirely new root if we're ever going to grow true, healthy spiritual life.
To establish this new root, the text draws a really stark contrast. You've got the first Adam, who was poisoned by pride, sought to be as God, and essentially brought wretchedness to the human race. But then you have the second Adam, Jesus Christ. The text explicitly calls him incarnate humility. Instead of trying to elevate himself to be as God, he emptied himself, becoming that brand new root that brings salvation. Murray meticulously breaks down how every single step of Christ's existence is completely characterized by this exact virtue. Think about it. First, in heaven, he humbles himself to become man. On earth, he doesn't show up as a conquering king, he takes the form of a servant. In the atonement, he becomes completely obedient unto death. And finally, exaltation, because he humbled himself, God crowns him with glory. So from heaven, down to earth, to the cross, and right back to the throne, it is nothing but absolute humility.
And that brings us to what might be the most profound summary in the entire text. His humility is our salvation. His salvation is our humility. Murray's argument here is that the secret to redemption isn't just some legal loophole or theological forgiveness of sins. It is the actual, literal impartation of Christ's own humble disposition into the believer. So to be saved, according to this framework, means you actually receive the life, the spirit, and that deep, abiding humility of Jesus Christ right inside yourself. It restores you back to that original design of the empty vessel.
As we wrap up this explainer, the author leaves us with a pretty massive challenge. After completely redefining humility, not as a shameful punishment, but as the beautiful original design of humanity, and framing it as the very core of redemption, he asks this: do we seek the humility of Jesus above our chief joy? Wow. It's a deeply provocative question that really forces us to look in the mirror when it comes to our own spiritual growth and our relationship with the Creator. Are we still operating out of that diseased root of pride? Or are we actively yielding, day by day, to become that empty vessel?